obviously after a tough loss. Injury-wise, Austin Falu is questionable. All right, he suffered an ankle injury. He continued playing, but he's certainly a little bit swollen today. Aside from that, I don't see any significant injuries. You might remind me of some if I'm missing something. But overall, our guys understand that immediately must be focused on playing a really good opponent, conference game on the road. Going on the road for the first time this year, 7:30 game. We really brought the attention to this in the offseason, the importance of playing well on the road, for it was something that in conference we did not do a good job of that last year. So that's been a big part of our offseason as well. And our guys understand that improvement is great, but cutting it close is not going to cut it. We've got to go the full way, got to go 100% in terms of our preparation and make sure that our motivation comes through our preparation as well.
Questions? Right over here, front right, Ryan.
Mario, could you just kind of take us to the running backs room on a couple things? How did CJ respond in practice? How's Tony doing physically? And is Taj Griffin going to transfer?
Okay, Taj Griffin is going to transfer. And again, it's playing time oriented. And anytime a student athlete has a decision to make that's in the best interest for himself, we support 100%. And so we do. Okay, and certainly going to wish him well and help him. CJ, he's got the full support and trust of his team. Difficult moment for anybody in their career to go through something like that. Tremendous lesson learned, obviously. And when you watch the tape, he really didn't try to reach the ball. He just tried to use his lower body to propel himself forward, but very costly. But he has the full support of everyone. He was out there running around and practicing hard, fully focused on improving. Tony Brooks-James tweaked his ankle in the course of the game, but returned later on and was probably able to go. But he seems to be okay. We feel he's going to be okay, so we're counting on him going this weekend.
On the left, James, second row.
Mario, with the time to look back at the tape of the 2nd and 3, 55 seconds left, and seeing exactly how Washington ended their game in a relatively similar situation, any change in perspective with how you would handle that situation?
Well, I don't think you second-guess yourself after the fact. I mean, we snapped the ball in second and really two with 58, 59 seconds on the clock. Okay, so at some point in time, if we don't get a first down, we're going to have to punt. And the decision, just like respectfully informed you on Saturday, was rather not send the punt team out there and risk a potential issue with the punt team as well. So that was a decision, and obviously it didn't work out, but that's the thought and the train of thought behind it.
Right here on the right, Austin.
Mario, when you look back at the tape, were you any more or less encouraged by the game? Were you able to maybe look at some of the positives when you had a little bit of distance from it?
Yeah, when you look at it, we played the type of football we want to get to, playing on a consistent basis for about 90% of the game. You see some great moments of physicality at the line of scrimmage. You see some really high-level execution on both sides of the ball. And then you see, about 10% of the time where the breakdowns were pretty significant and resulted in some really big plays and change of momentum. And some of them were self-inflicted, and those are the painful ones. But when you look at in terms of the way we played and how we played with passion, with intensity, with tremendous amount of effort, you see a lot of positive things. And the biggest thing is understanding that these games, especially conference games that are just like playoff games, a full 60 minutes is a full 60 minutes. Any one play, every single one play is as important as any other one. There is no lesser importance, and you got to be able to stay focused and on task the entire time. So we're going to continue stressing that, emphasizing that, sticking by our players and making sure that we galvanize the team. And I think sometimes games like this do that for you. It does that for you. You learn a painful lesson in a painful manner that should not only motivate you, but also just really bring out the best in you as a true competitor.
Front left, Matt.
What'd you make of your defensive line and the depth that you had? The defensive line, it seemed like it wasn't just your three starters that were making plays against them.
Yeah, Drayton did a nice job. So did Gary Baker. Gary came out and made some nice plays. I know that Gus got in there, did some stuff. The combination of all those guys playing together results in some really productive play. And we did a really nice job, in the run game. I know in the third quarter, or I should say the fourth quarter, they might have hit us on a couple of plays, a misfit here or there, but overall, just the effort, controlling the line of scrimmage, our fits and whatnot, certainly continuing to take steps forward in the physicality of our play up front.
Second row middle, Eric.
It seemed like that was probably the biggest stage Justin's played at. I mean, could he have handled that game any better? It seemed like he was about as sharp as we've ever seen him.
It's very sharp, impressive, and he seems to get better and better. And I think the moments as they get bigger, he'll get better as well. I mean, he is driven. He hungers for that. He wants that for his team. And his preparation carries him through all that stuff. I don't think there's anything that'll allow him, or he won't allow himself to flinch. So I know he's committed to preparing harder than ever going forward as well.
Second row right, Maggie.
On the defensive side of Saturday's game, what did you see from Justin Hollins?
Justin, he's played really good football for us. I know that they were really trying to make it difficult for him to get to the quarterback. They slide their protections one way or the other. And a lot of times he was to the zone side, where you have three blockers blocking two guys. But he did get there on a few occasions. He did a nice job against the run as well, was really physical. Just a player that continues to develop and evolve. And he's so important to what we do, so important for so many reasons. And he uses his length well. He uses his power well. He's extremely quick, so he got underneath a lot of stuff and forced stuff to bounce. Played a really good football game. Proud of the way he played.
Third row right, Ken.
Mario, this is your first road game of the season. What kind of concerns do you have playing your first road game, and also what to make of Cal, unbeaten, maybe a little bit of a surprise?
Cal's doing a great job. I know they're 3-0. They cracked the top 25 this week, deservedly so. I know they beat BYU, on the road. And what they showed is a tremendous amount of playmaking ability on defense to get that game swinging in their direction. They do a great job in the secondary. I believe they have 7 interceptions thus far. And they do so much. They move so much up front. They're very athletic up front. Nose tackle's a really large guy. The combination of him, Blunt in the center, and the combination of all the movement that they do up front really causes some issues. And so they force those balls to bounce outside. The two inside linebackers are really active, really high football IQ players. They will knock you back. They are true inside linebackers that can run sideline to sideline. And everything we've seen from them, it speaks highly of not only a disciplined defense, but a defense that has a lot of athleticism. They know their scheme. They know it well. They do a great job. Offensively, they're very multiple. They're very diverse. They've played 3 quarterbacks, and all of them very different in their own way. One can do both. Another one is probably more of a passer, and the other one's a dynamic athlete. And they have designed several plays for the quarterback, set themselves up in formations that really put your defense, it makes you compromise certain things where your eye discipline has to be to the max at its best in order to prevent some large chunk plays. And they've created some really big plays, and they've created some problems for the defense that they have faced so far. So facing them, and again, their offensive line does a great job. They're physical. They get after you. They play with really good effort. We expect their best. We know they're a good football team. It's at home for them. For our guys, it's an exciting moment and a great challenge. It really is. And our focus turned to that immediately yesterday after our film review of Saturday's game, knowing that we have a lot to prove to ourselves as a football team. We feel we haven't played our best football yet, or we still haven't played our fully and complete game yet. And going on the road is something that requires, it's a different mentality. It really is. And it galvanizes and unifies the team more than anything else. Your trust and belief and accountability whenever you go into a conference game on the road has to be at the highest level. And all of those things are points of emphasis and things that we work on a daily basis. So I know it's a long answer to a short question, but yeah, I was trying to encompass everything in there for you. It's a great, great challenge for our guys, and we're really looking forward to it.
All right, Alex.
How has the work this team has put in throughout the year prepared them to respond to the loss on Saturday?
Well, I think it prepares you for that game and to whatever the outcome is. I told them before, there's never going to be a consolation prize in a loss. We just don't operate that way. I think you could destroy your psyche that way if you do so. The reality of the matter is it's not difficult to see their progress as a team. I know I mentioned it before. Last year that game was 49-7. Do you take a loss in overtime? No, you just don't. Do you acknowledge that you've accelerated your development and growth and that the cap is closed and you have an opportunity to take that next step? Absolutely. So the approach to that is just becoming more hungry and more driven, understanding that if you can fully just trust the process and focus on our preparation and focus on all the things that you must do to get just a little bit more out of yourself and your teammate. If everyone just could just get that much better, and that little percentage of improvement could be a monstrous result. And I really believe our guys understand that and they're committed to that.
Obviously, having Justin available will help, but what have you talked to the guys? What can you do as a coach to be a better road team this year as compared to last year?
Well, it's got to be from the get-go. You've got to make sure and understand this is a business trip. And I understand we have a lot of players from California, and there'll be a lot of families there, but we're not going there to have family time. We're not. There's always a window there, a small one, for families to see their sons and whatnot, because that's important. I mean, there's a reason that we recruit California so heavily, and that's one of them, to make sure that for us it's local. It's part of, it's almost like it's in-state recruiting for us. But the other part of it is that going on the road requires a special type of discipline and focus. It starts with, really, today, with going to school, getting to class early, being respectful, making sure you have all your materials, having a mindset that puts you in that business mode, and understanding that it's got to be like that throughout the entire week, from the moment we get on the bus to the airport and fly out there and land, and have our meetings, that there can't be anything in any way, shape, or form that can distract us from what we're going there to do.
On the right, Ryan?
Mario, when the red shirt rule came out, all the coaches around the country were in favor of it, obviously, but did you anticipate that players would use it to kind of feel things out for 4 weeks and transfer? And how do you feel about that?
I think so. I mean, it serves a purpose, and it serves multiple purposes, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay because at the end of this whole thing, it's you have 85 scholarship players on your roster. You have another 20 guys that have walked on, and a lot of those guys are competitive. They have a chance to play, and I think there's points and times throughout the a young man's career where it's time to keep going or it's time to do something else. I don't ever judge that. I don't. For us, it's very simple. We do right by our guys to the very end. Whether there's agreement or disagreement on playing time, it doesn't matter. You're always respectful throughout the entire process. That's what you owe everyone. That's what everyone owes each other in these processes. So I think that when a young man explores those options or whatnot, I really have no problem with that at all.
Right here in the middle, Eric.
I know you said Sunday was a really good practice, but did it require any kind of work on your guys' end to get the guys focused, or were they kind of self-prepared in that regard?
You confront it right away. You make sure that the whole meeting starts off with approaching this thing and confronting it with shake it off, right? I think we've all heard that a million times, the coach speak about don't allow yourself to get beat twice by the same opponent. In other words, don't let that game linger in your mind and in your mood and in your attitude for an extra week, therefore affecting your next game. Okay, the best thing about something like this is the fact that there's a lesson, and a lesson wasted if you don't learn from it. So we cannot waste it. Cannot at all. Got to make sure you approach it directly and teach and coach and make sure that there's clarity, that there's progress and that you move forward, and understanding that these lumps and these painful steps are part of developing and improving yourself as a player and improving as a team.
Rob, on the left.
You mentioned school getting going. Is it just as simple as moving practice up a little, or are there other schedule changes you guys will deal with then starting this week?
Practice has to start half an hour earlier because we have so many guys, 25 guys that have a noon class. Therefore, we like to give them a full hour where they can get something to eat, get showered up. We don't want them to go into class all stinky and whatnot. We want to make sure they represent and get there in time. Be able to find a parking spot. We want to make sure we do it right. We're very kind. Back in the day, I got to be honest with you, you were let out of practice about 7 minutes, and you had to shower, eat, shave, put on clothes, and get to your class 20 minutes away in 7 minutes. Well, we make sure that those guys have time to get there because it's important there. Look, it's with our guys, it's simple, and we always make sure we go right at this thing. Is there should be absolutely no difference with the way you approach your football life as you do with your academic life. Okay, you're early for meetings here. You're dressed, you're taped, you're enthused, you're ready to go. It's the same thing for class, and it's about class. It's about respect. It's also about mindset and DNA, right? And that has to be. We tell guys in recruiting, it's like, look, man, this is a place for people that are serious about academics and football. So we always start off, this particular day like that, so that there's a clear understanding for everybody.
Left right here, James.
Mario, you've encompassed some of these topics already independently, but altogether, you're coming off a loss. You've got classes starting, your first road game. You got a bye week after that. A lot of people in this industry would call this a trap game. How much of a concern is it from a coaching perspective, from a staff perspective, of all these factors together happening at once that this could set up for such a circumstance?
Well, I think that the reality of it is there's more stuff going on. I think you said it perfectly. And I also think it becomes what you let it become or what you coach it to become. So as a coach, you have to be honest with yourself and realize, okay, these things are going on. Let's make sure we address them. Let's make sure we get out in front of them. Let's make sure from a scheduling standpoint, from a rest and recovery standpoint, from a time management standpoint, probably the most important part, if we have classes on these days and these are our tutoring appointments and our assignments are due on these days, let's make sure that those blocks of free time are used wisely so that a guy doesn't try to make up his work on an airplane or at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night, as opposed to us making sure we manage and help them manage their time. And I mean, especially young guys. Young guys, it's kind of new for them, right? Like these young guys, they're used to going to high school, bell rings, period 2, bell rings, period 3. Here, you might go a full day without a class, but then you have your 4 classes the following day. So time management, which is on us, and teaching them. Every single new guy on the team has a mentor, which helps them with that as well. And our academic services, they do a phenomenal job making sure our guys are on point. So we handle that way. We make sure when we get them in the building, they're locked in on football. There's nothing else that they can do during their blocked hours over here. So we lock them in. We heavily involved the leadership council as well. Just like, Ugo did a great job speaking with the team yesterday, and a bunch of those guys have been doing that throughout the course of the year. So that's how we do it. That's how we manage it.
Time for 2 more. Back middle, Jerry.
Coach, I think we kind of dwell on a team getting over a loss like that and forget that coaches who are adults seem to have maybe a little more trouble moving forward. You find out your players help the coaches. Young people have an ability to move ahead, move forward. Do they help you during a week like this get beyond that loss?
I find it kind that you call coaches adults. I think that's the first thing. The coaches, by the time they show up and by the time they deal with their players, they have to have shaken it off, because they are smart, they're intuitive, they have great instincts, and if it's in you and you haven't shaken it off, then there's no way you can, convince anyone else to shake it off. So the best part about the trust in our program is that the players know exactly what's up because of how real we are with them. As a coach, of course, it's the hardest thing in the world, man. If you're a competitor, right? If you live and die for this stuff, it's the most painful stuff in the world. So, but you also realize what you are, what your role is, and what your responsibilities are. So you buckle up, you take it, you eat it, you learn from it, and you go. And there's no other looking back. There's no dwelling. You just roll, you roll, but you make sure that you take every lesson possible and you apply it so you can go forward and have better success next time.
Last question here, Rob, on the left.
Thoughts on the home field advantage you had Saturday? What do you think of the crowd?
It's the best crowd in America. I think we know that from going out there early and game day. I mean, that was absolutely shocking sight in a great way, at the enthusiasm, the energy. I mean, they caused a penalty for our opponent, deep over there in their own territory. They made it an unbelievable setting. And I think one of the best things is that, being on game day and having that nationally televised game is that the entire country, was very well reminded of what Oregon is, and the fan base, the enthusiasm, the support, the affinity, the passion. It's just, it's unmatched. So it was absolutely awesome. It was absolutely awesome.